Hello, hello, and welcome to today's podcast. Today, we are talking about this lovely calendar we have behind us.
That's this gigantic calendar that covers the
AKA,
whole wall.
Well, you can't really read it. It's backwards, but you get the drift. The you who are watching get the drift.
Yeah. If you can't watch us, it says the big A hashtag calendar. So short for big ass.
Yes. And what we are talking about today, and the reason why we're talking about this today is because we are at that time of year when so many people are saying, I'm going to start this in the new year, January 1. I'm going to get going. And what we are here to do today is invite you to let go of that idea and start now.
Yep. Sounds like a plan. But, so many people kind of get disappointed with maybe what they have done or what they haven't done or what haven't planned, and so we're just kind of hoping that we can kind of help you do a little bit better for the planning part of that and kind of see, really, yes, you do have accomplishments, and yes, I've got a lot of things going on, and, maybe I need something else, or maybe I don't need a few things going on. That might be the case too.
So this calendar is from Jesse Itzler, who has a lot of different events and things that you can do, but he also has this calendar, and the calendar is kind of based on three things that he has people do. And number one is a Misogi, and that's taken from a Japanese ritual that is a big undertaking, something really big and hard.
This big, massive event, something that maybe it's super hard, or maybe it's long, or maybe it costs a lot, possibly. So, but there's different ideas and different definitions of what you call a big event. So, but that's the goal, is to have one main event for that year
that you can always look back on that year and say, oh yeah, that's the year that this big thing happened.
Right. Or plan in the future. That's kind of also part of it too. So it's
yes,
looking forward. So, but the other thing that he talks about is having mini adventures. So that's basically, it's
mini,
M-I-N-I. So adventures in a year, and you're looking, but maybe every couple of months, 6 times a year, for instance, having these events. And that could be, for us, it's like, maybe a hunting trip, or maybe it's races, have a lot of running. Yeah, mainly for myself here, and I don't know, or biking events. We do a lot of biking events around the country, so it's fun too.
And then his last step is to incorporate a winning habit 4 times a year. So every 90 days, incorporate a winning habit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a piece that we are just now going to start incorporating this year. We haven't really done that in the past.
Right. Well, we have
consistently.
Sometimes that's the trouble. It's hard to be consistent, whether it's having, family dinners once a week, or trying to have something, on a regular basis, or maybe it could be something as simple as holidays, or, exercising, more regularly, things of that nature.
Yeah.
But also it's a good place to kind of record family events on this large of a calendar too. So, we can have things like milestones, kids milestones, or, appointments that we have going on, or just recovery weeks. It's like, okay, we need this week to recover between these events. So it's kind of good to have that.
So the idea behind the calendar is that you do this ahead of time so that you know what to expect and what's coming up. They've got these great color-coded stickers, so you can get as crazy about the organization as you would like. And it really helps create excitement, build accountability, and aligns priorities.
Yeah, I really like the color coding part of that. That's what really I enjoy a lot, because I can literally walk by this thing and look and see, okay, how many big trips do we have? How many, race events am I going to get in a year or so? Because that's all kind of part of what we do. It's kind of our lifestyle.
Yes. And I will say that one of the main reasons why we started using a calendar like this is that when you have a big goal, like Mark does with running a marathon in all 50 states, he's now down to only 10 left. And that takes a lot of coordination, because certain states only have races during certain months, and
Hmm.
we're kind of getting down to a small enough number that it really does take some coordinating to try to get this done and get through some
Right.
states.
Because certain times of the year you can count on not, unless you want to run in the snow, or run in the heat. But it's always good to kind of plan those out in certain times of the year. But this thing really helps us being intentional about really meeting our big goals and keeping our lives planned. So everybody gets busy, at various different times of the years. And if you have kids, it makes it even harder. So, or a lot of family members, sometimes it's hard to juggle all that. So it makes it easier for us.
So we like to use this as a couple too, and planning. We live together, we work together, all the things together. So it's really great when we can kind of sit down and be on the same page.
Right. It's very helpful. Whether a person needs to be on the same page for their goals or for their activities or when they're going to get their appointments done, it's all kinds of things. But our health goals is what we really use it a lot for. When they're gonna, you can see when a race is coming up and kind of know, okay, here's when I need to really start honing in my training, or this is when I really need to recover and I need to watch the fact that I can't do a whole lot this week, for instance, things along that line too.
Relationship goals also, we oftentimes will get our date nights put in up here.
Mm-hmm. Trips and even weekends where we don't want to be bothered by technology. We want to unplug a little bit potentially, so it's kind of good to have that time too
marked out and
Yep.
know when it's coming, so that you can let your family know too, that like, this is you're not going to be able to reach me time.
Right. And then, speaking of family, it's kind of a good thing too to have for family goals. So you can kind of tell, okay, well, we need to incorporate all the children and if you have grandkids or parents, grandparents, things like that. So you can kind of get everybody on the same page that way too.
And one piece that we haven't really used this as much for, but we are intending to in this future year coming up, is for our business goals. I mean, it's an interesting thing when you're looking at intentionally planning your life, because what we can do is get our personal things on the calendar and then fill in the business and work type things around that. And there's definitely some opportunity to include some business goals in this calendar too.
Yeah. And it's, these types of things help us to kind of avoid the burnout, of course, any resentment, things like that. But this kind of helps us to space out the events, both from a physical standpoint, we don't want to do too many races in a row, for instance, too many bike rides in a row, but also, mentally just helps for you to kind of know what's coming, and kind of helps you prepare and be less surprised when that weekend comes. So
this year, I was really excited to have nothing planned in the month of October, or not October, August.
Yeah.
It was August. I was like, we are not putting anything here. August, we are going to stay home and just be here.
Yeah. And that is kind of nice. It's nice to have nothing going on sometimes. So sometimes we can fill our lives up a little bit too much activity. But, expectations and surprises kind of helps kind of slow the curves on those, so we don't have so much stress associated with that. And even our CME meetings, our continuing education meetings, they're nice to have on there too, we can kind of see, okay, well, how many events do we need to go to? It's like, oh, we went to that one last year, or we're going to do that again the same time next year. So kind of helps that. But as far as a marriage building piece, this is something that we kind of look forward to together. We kind of work on this together and kind of write the stuff down, and it's a time for us to kind of get together and talk and have that connection.
And we talked about priorities already, but it is a really good way to understand each other's priorities and know how we're supporting each other in those priorities.
Yeah. But, we had to, if this is something we actually make room for the connection, instead of just kind of waiting for it to happen. So it's kind of a nice piece. But this is kind of how things, from what we know from our examples that we've done, for our instance, our rag bright race, that we had that big bike ride that we had across Iowa this year.
That was our Misogi this year.
Yeah, that was our big Misogi one. Yeah, and then of course we had a 29029, which were climbing. We did a separate podcast on that. That was the climbing event that we did for a weekend. And then we had a lot of local races, so it's kind of good to go back and see how many of those we did for comparison purposes too. So, but knowing these big events gives us a reason and kind of motivation to know it's like, okay, we have to train, we have to sleep, we got to fuel better, we got to work on those parts and those pieces. We can't just go eat ice cream every night. We've got to keep our diet cleaner, and it's just a good form of being able to live. So, but what we're kind of trying to help people understand is kind of their mindset of doing something about it instead of just drifting through life. Most people just kind of drift along year to year and says, I wish I'd have done that, or I'm going to plan to do that next year, or maybe I'm going to start that training or exercise program, or maybe I'm going to do that half marathon or that hike or that bike ride, So this kind of gives us an idea of motivation and encouragement to kind of plan for these events.
And it could be, it doesn't have to be activity. It could be a getaway with your spouse or with the family or a camping trip. I think a lot of times we get into the routine of what our things are. And certainly there are a lot of other things that could fill in the blanks.
Yeah. It's just good to be intentional about areas. It's like, okay, we got a couple of months here. It's like, do we want to do anything? Is it going to be nice? Are we going to stay around the house, or, what do we need to do or not need to do? So, but we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for direction.
Yes.
On how to, kind of keep our lives organized. So,
and absolutely it is up for change. If something comes up, we definitely hold space for change of mind or.
And it's kind of nice too with the stickers, so you can take the stickers off when you decide, no, I don't want to do that then. So it's like, let's move that to another week or another month. And so that's another nice thing. It's actually quite visual, because I'm quite a visual person. I really like this thing from the different color standpoint. And that's also another part of kind of what I like about it, is the fact that this calendar is quite visible, and that's intentional.
You can't overshare.
This thing is huge for starters. I don't know if you can, it's about 4 feet by 3 feet, so it's a pretty good sized calendar. It's got a line is basically 1 month. And so this thing is huge, and it takes up a lot of wall space, but we put it in our closet on the side of our clothing racks, and we walk by it multiple times a day, to get back and forth to certain areas. And so it's quite visible to see that, and it kind of keeps everything in perspective. It's like, okay, well, what am I doing this day? And what am I doing that? What's going on this next week? So it's very visible. But, I think as far as how can you build your own calendar, I think
absolutely. I'll just say, you don't have to have this big,
right. You don't have to spend
this idea, just get started even today, brain dumping.
Yeah.
What you think of for next year, adventures that you want to take, health goals that you have, learning goals, family time, those things.
Right. All that. And rest, work the rest in. We talk about that all the time. It's not just about sleep for health. It's also rest.
Recovery.
You can do nothing. Nothing is not nothing. It's a good time to do the recovery, and that's where we get repairs. So
choosing your one big goal, and that may be the starting point. And, maybe it happens for us, it's happening in March next year. Maybe it's June or whatever. And then you can move your other, 6 mini adventures around that one Misogi.
Yeah. That usually that big thing is something that, it's and that can be designed to be an inexpensive big thing. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but sometimes they do. But at least that way you can kind of plan financially too, what the rest of the year is going to look like potentially for folks too.
And then as far as your habits, your winning habits that you work in, you can put that up there too, and think about as you're thinking about the different goals that you have, what are some actions that can actually get you to that goal?
Right. So I guess really what we want to do is encourage everybody to kind of, take a look at your life and see what needs to happen. I think that you'll find out that once you do these and you look back, or you can think ahead, and it's like, wow, that's one big thing a year, and half a dozen things that are quite big adventures every year. I mean, you add that up over a lifetime, and that gets pretty significant. But the idea is don't wait around for the first year to decide to make this calendar. Start this today, start it now, so that you can plan your year in advance. And a lot of us don't know what's going on, but if you don't start, you're never going to finish.
Yeah.
So
And as we make these plans and set these goals, we can start getting that momentum right now and then
yeah,
hit the ground running.
right. And don't feel overwhelmed. It's like, oh man, who can plan a whole year in advance? That's not the point. The point is to start, by doing a small step. Whether we're having you do something in your lifestyle that's one small step to improve your overall health, same thing can happen with setting up a calendar. Pick one big thing, try to put it in the year, and then start filling in the gaps. Maybe I want to do a little more in the winter, or I may want to do more in the summer. So it just kind of do what you can, and then come back to it. Come back to it, and knowing that the stickers will come off the calendar, so you can change your minds. I've done that more than once.
Yeah. And I think you can really learn from the way you're living from this calendar too. I think one of the things that we have noticed this past year is it used to be that it was really easy for us to buzz in and buzz out for an event, and it's getting less comfortable to do that. So
yeah, we try to plan a little bit of rest time, a little rest and recovery on either side of what we do. So it's very helpful. So it's nothing worse than getting back from a travel from wherever you go, and then the next morning at 6 a.m. you're up and back to work again. That's fatiguing.
yes.
So
And as you learn, you can change and adapt.
yeah, but all this planning is just basically going to help us reduce stress. It's going to help you be able to handle the stress, and it's going to overall improve your energy, mood, and of course strengthen your relationship with connection.
Yes. And it also does help you to say no when something comes up and it's a weekend or time when you've already had something planned that you've intentionally planned for yourself. You can say, I'm sorry, I can't do that thing because I have already committed to myself to do this other
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Because we got a couple of weddings that, we had engagements with to go to, and that just, okay, well, we're not going to do this event, then we're going to go to the wedding. So that's also kind of nice to have that.
Yeah.
That downtime. But if anybody's interested in this kind of calendar, Tandi, I guess we can put in the show notes, maybe a link.
Yeah.
So,
we can certainly do that.
If anybody's interested in it.
Yep.
So, but otherwise, we hope that everybody will try to get a little more connection, and try to help to plan themselves out a little bit and reduce their stress and be a little happier with a healthier living. So, but we hope you enjoyed this day talking about our personal calendar. So have a great day.